It's Monday, April 6, 2026. It's a busy day in, well, I guess, Michigan sports between we have the Tigers playing later tonight, we have the Pistons getting ready to tip off, and of course the big game, especially for one of our partners here. It was the Michigan-UConn game in a couple hours. But there's still time for the Knee Jerks podcast with Eno, Nick, and Big L. How's that for a segue? As always, I am the I guess the master of ceremonies, I guess you'd call it. I'm a longtime Detroit-based podcaster, Al Beaton. Joining me, as always, our regular crew, and along we have a long-missing returnee. But before we get to him, let's get out the introductions. The first is our West Coast correspondent, who is all decked out in his Michigan gear and ready to celebrate a national title, and that would be Nick Milanovich. Nick, how's things?
That's right, man. I'm looking forward to this. 2 years ago, Michigan beat the Washington Huskies. Now let's see Michigan basketball beat the Connecticut Huskies.
Yeah, and I feel different about this game than I did against with the Villanova game a few years ago. And who was that before that? Louisville, exactly. But yeah, it was the phantom block with the phantom foul on Trey Burke. But yeah, this almost a 6.5 point favorite. That's what gets me nervous. So, all right. Always joining us is the man who knows a lot of things about a lot of things. His latest column, which went out on Substack this afternoon, was about the Detroit Pistons and the playoffs, and that would be, of course, our Renaissance man, Greg Eno. Greg, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, Al Beaton. Thank you so much.
Yes.
You can follow me on X at Greg Eno. GregEno.substack.com is the aforementioned Substack. Please subscribe. I will be in your inbox every Monday. And as Al mentioned, today's piece was about the Pistons having secured the number one seed in the East and how I feel that they're still, despite that, playing with house money, heading into the playoffs. And this is a team that's still not battle tested, I don't think, yet in the playoffs. So anything we get out of them, I think, in the postseason would be a bonus. I know some people will disagree with me, and I know that the fan base, despite that, will still take this series, this first round series, whoever they end up playing, to heart, and every loss will be catastrophic. I understand that. But the future's bright in Piston land, so I wrote about that. At Greg Eno is the X way to follow me, and GregEno.substack.com is Substack. We have... I have to be out of here in about an hour and a half, so we're gonna. Al and Nick may carry on without me, but I'm very excited tonight because for the folks who are watching this podcast, they're not going to know by face who Matt Hutter is, because when Matt was doing the show with us, he was never on camera. None of us were. We were all doing this on via phone or via
Skype or whatever,
and nobody had a camera on. So Matt was a voice to our listeners, not a face, and Matt is here with us tonight. We're very excited.
How do we really know this is Matt Hutter, though? We've never seen him.
That's the thing. Yeah, you never know.
Matt was our Red Wings.
Email, same phone number.
Yeah, Matt was our Red Wings guy for the first several years we did this podcast. I feel like maybe 29 to 20, I don't know, 15, I don't remember.
Yeah.
And he's here with us. And Matt and I kicked this around, and I said, well, why not just do it sooner than later? So we had him on the show, invited him to be on the show tonight, and here he is. And Matt, before we get into who you are, because we have to familiarize yourself with the listeners,
sure,
watchers, viewers. I have to ask you. And I apologize for not remembering. How did we even hook up for you to be a guest on the Bleachers?
So, it's part of the story, and maybe to explain to everybody who I am, what I'm doing here. But so, in the very early days of Bleacher Report, way before Turner brought it, you could just be anyone and be a blogger,
right?
And Greg, you were doing your own thing on a few other mediums, but you were a writer on Bleacher Report, and then I started writing stuff. And then at some point, you remember they had the featured writer or featured columnist. You and I were both that at one point. I think the first two. And then, and we would comment on each other's work or something. And then at one point you said, hey, we've got this podcast. Why don't you come on? So it really started from Bleacher Report, which, became more and more sophisticated. And I think around 2010, 2011, I got media credentials for NHL. Like I covered the
Mm-hmm.
draft because I was still in California then, so I was covering LA, and so it became a much more like legitimate enterprise
Hmm.
over time, which kind of led more legitimacy to whatever I would blather on about with you guys,
Hmm.
and yeah, that kind of ran through 2015, and then it changed over time. The site it got more and more popular, it became kind of like a news aggregator site, and my day job just got more and more demanding, and then they just kind of wanted me to just keep doing slideshows, and that just wasn't very appealing. So eventually, total amicable, but I said, I'm kind of going to be done as the featured writer, and that was about it. So that's my bona fide from like 10 years ago.
Well, I remember those slideshows. Gosh, oh man, the slideshows.
Oh
They love them
God,
some
yes.
slideshows, man. Oh
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
man.
what Bleacher Report's probably version 20 at this point. They've had so many
Yeah.
pivots.
yeah. I covered the Stanley Cup Finals in 08 and 09 through
Hmm.
Bleacher Report, and I also did it kind of as an independent guy as well. And that was a surreal deal when the Penguins won the Cup in Detroit in Game 7. Being on the ice, I was on the ice for the ceremony and interviewed Malkin and all those guys in the locker room and a bunch of guys on the ice, Lemieux and so forth.
Yeah.
And then I remember walking down to the Red Wings dressing room and that whole thing about that saying you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
Well, you could absolutely hear a pin drop in
Mm-hmm.
that locker room. It was as quiet as death in that 20 guys not saying a word. And
Yeah.
it was all that stuff that I witnessed, which I was happy to have witnessed and reported on. I was hoping it was going to be on the other side, but it ended up being the Penguins. And
Sure.
what are you going to do? That was just the way
Yeah.
it went. But anyway, Matt's here, and we're going to be talking Red Wings, obviously. Al, we could do the interview first, and then we'll do.
Yeah, let's hit the ground running, and we just go from there. Because there's so
Okay.
much to talk about when it comes to the Red
Yeah.
Wings right now.
Right. Okay. Let's get right into it then. Obviously, we're in a situation again, Matt, with the team right now as we record this on the outside looking in, despite the fact
Yeah.
they were, I believe, 12 points up. When I say 12 points up, 12 points within the playoff
Within the cut
circle.
line.
Yeah. Sometime in late January, and lo and behold, and this is a team that and these guys know this throughout and Nick too, throughout the season, neither of us, and Al to a degree too, none of us really trusted this team. I kept pointing to the goal differential, and I kept pointing to the fact that only 3 or 4 guys really score. And then we had Keith Gabe on the show, and right around the All-Star break and Olympic break, and Keith said, "I'll tell you if they're going to make the playoffs 5 games after the break." And sure enough, 5 games after the break was when they started going in the dumpster. So what say you about this? This is now 4 marches in a row.
Yep.
It's not funny anymore. It's not cute anymore. What's going on?
I mean, the answer I think you'll hear from a lot of folks, but it's not terribly satisfying, is just this team has a culture problem.
Yeah.
If you look at this, is 3 different coaches now.
Right.
It's a wildly different roster. You look at 3 or 4 years ago, but it's the same thing. And while I think this season, for most of the season, they were doing better than they've been in literally years,
Mm-hmm.
decade. But before the Olympic break, you figured, is this really going to last? And if that's what we're thinking, I wonder, are the players thinking the same thing? Those who have been there, like a Dylan Larkin, through the whole time, through the whole process of these collapses of being good enough to be in, and maybe better this year than they've been before. But almost like this is just our thing. This is what we do. We just kind of go into a shell. We stop shooting pucks. Our power play, takes a dump. Our goaltending, just is so erratic. We're not able to rely on that. But at the same time, you should be able to spot your goaltender a couple of goals.
Right.
I think through a large stretch of December through January, when Gibson was like the best goalie in the league.
Mm-hmm.
That was great to see. It's like you finally got a number one, but you wonder, like, how long is that going to last? And if you can't put in 4 or 5 goals to cover up on a bad night where he's given up 3 or 4, are you really banking points that maybe you haven't earned, right? And to your point, I mean, the thing that I've talked about with other folks, it's the goal differential.
Mhm.
I mean, at the end of the day, hockey's a goal scoring contest. So whoever scores the most is going to win the contest. And throughout this whole season, this team has really struggled to score, not to win games and bank points,
Mhm.
but those have come at such a close margin throughout the year that if you look at the teams that are in the playoffs, most of them are in double digit differential. I think that's been a huge problem that maybe didn't look as big when they were winning as it does now.
When you get in these situations, and I said this last week, I wrote a piece about Dylan Larkin and primarily Larkin. And the thing I said in that piece, I said something to the effect of this is a situation where everyone's to blame, yet no one is to blame. Meaning that everyone wants to, everyone wants there to be some sort of a scapegoat to blame
Yeah.
everything on. And some people think it's the general manager, some people think it's the captain, some people think it's the overall roster as a whole, some people want to think it's the goaltending, some people want to say it's the culture, like you said. But it can be a multitude of things, of course. I'm just wondering if Matt, if this is simply, maybe if there's an Occam's razor thing to this too, that says maybe they're just simply not good enough. I mean, we can talk about all these different things, and I think we tend to want to dissect it because that's what we
Yeah.
do. But really, maybe it's just an Occam's razor thing that says this roster just isn't. They're just not good enough, and I think that if, Nick and I were talking via text last week about the great Red Wings teams of the past and how they didn't have to worry about culture or being gritty or having heart because they were more talented than everybody else. This is a bunch of Hall of Famers put on one roster. The 2002 team, for God's sakes, is like half the team is in the Hall of Fame. So you didn't have to worry about culture. You didn't have to worry about are they gritty enough. You didn't have to worry about do they want it more. You didn't have to worry about any of that because their talent overwhelmed everybody. Yeah. So is it just? Are we just over? Is it simply they're just not good enough? I guess is my question.
I definitely think that's part of it. I mean, if you go to the back, if you remember the beginning of this season, and they laid that egg on opening night, but then they rattled off 5 wins after that to including my surprise. And they had 3 rookies on the team, which is unheard of for this team. And even over the past, decade or so when they've been crappy. And, the notion that you can have 3 straight up wet behind the ears rookies on your opening roster and then rattle off, 5 wins in 6 games was like, well, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the right combination of, veterans and young guys coming in. I think that was, that was just pure adrenaline on guys like Finney and Sandy Pellica maybe. And then, they kind of settle into the fact that, no, you've got another, whatever it was, 75 more games of this. And at that point, you realize, though it's great to see the young talent come in, they're not all world talent. They're not a Macklin Celebrini like in San Jose or something like that. And so in that case, you get diminishing returns when you got young guys on your roster because they just don't have the experience. They don't have the, just the physical, experience and stamina of going through just a very grueling 82 game season. So then you look at, okay, if you take those away, those young guys away, who you have left? Well, your core, it's Larkin up in the middle. Your number 2 to start the season, Andrew Kopp, which is having probably his best season, stats wise, of his time in Detroit. Not taking anything away from the guy, but man, if Andrew Kopp is your 2C, especially in this division, you got a problem, right? And then you've got, Moritz Seider is your legitimate, number 1 defenseman who's having a great year himself. And then you've got your eventual, undisputed starter in Gibson. Well, if you compare that to what Montreal's been able to build, even in Ottawa, who's, now looking, their odds are much better than Detroit, so getting in the playoffs. Buffalo, remember, Buffalo started terribly. They were a joke. They were just, But again, if you look at that roster on paper with the Alex Tuck and the Rasmus Dahlin and even their goalie situation was a little bit dicey, but you saw the numbers. On paper, they're a better team than Detroit. They should have been winning. I don't know if they anyone predicted this kind of meteoric rise that they've had this season. But that team was built better than Detroit's team is now. And so I think it's a construction issue in terms of, the rookies you have are promising, but they're not experienced enough to make a sustainable difference. And then you've got older guys, throughout the roster that are, trying to fill in holes. But I mean, Andrew Cobb can't, hit the net to save his life. You've got, guys like Comfort, which is kind of a poor man's version of Andrew Cobb that's kind of here, there, and everywhere. There's just no flow. There's no sustainable chemistry that this team's been able to sustain over the course of this season. And in this case, I do give McClellan some credit that he's found ways to kind of mix and match. You get points on any given night, but you don't build a winning culture that way of just trying to take guys in, put them out, put them on the wing, put them in the center, because you're trying to cover up for a bunch of holes in your roster, frankly.
We're talking with our old friend Matt Hutter about Red Wings hockey. Let's bring Nick Milanovich into this conversation. Nick, what you got for Matt?
Well, I'm going to assume in this case the Wings aren't going to make the playoffs, and other than by some grace of God that they get in, but I'm not holding my breath for that. So now comes the off season. Where do they go from here? We'll talk about trades, free agency. Who do they trade out of this roster? Does anybody want any of the guys that are just kind of that have been called like dead weight?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, this isn't a terribly deep free agent pool, first of all, coming up in the summer. And then it's looking, you got to trade valuable assets. So if you look at that, I mean, the three most valuable assets this season, probably a Moritz Sider, probably an Alex DeBrincat, probably a Dylan Larkin. You could, maybe do Larkin versus Raymond debate there. Those are, let's say those are the four guys that would really draw some interest from other teams. Okay, so, unless you're planning to just blow it up and start all over again for year 10, who are better players that you can get via trade to replace those guys? No. I mean, there was a lot made over, several months ago when the Quinn Hughes trade happened. There's, it's pretty much an open secret that he was interested in coming to Detroit, local kid, all that. And, what Vancouver wanted in return was Simon Edvinsson. And the reason that Steve Yzerman didn't make that deal was that they couldn't guarantee a sign and trade deal with Quinn Hughes, which made sense at the time. In other words, Hughes wasn't willing to come to Detroit and then sign a long-term deal, said, I'll be a free agent in 18 months. And so you risk losing him and Edvinsson ultimately for nothing. In hindsight, does that trade or did that decision still make sense? In other words, would we rather have Quinn Hughes for the rest of this season and next season and no Simon Edvinsson forever? I don't know. It depends. Could that have made the difference in terms of a, kind of all-world defenseman, upping the goal scoring ability and just being literally one of the best defensemen in the league? Your team may be, right? So these are the types of things that you look back in hindsight, it's like, well, maybe we should have done that. But even then, if you look at the remaining assets that are worth protecting, other than those four guys I mentioned, and even then, I think that's debatable. No, I don't think so. I don't think there's anyone on the roster that, if you can get something for them, get something. But I think now the decision, the tough decision is going to be is, are you still going to try and build for now, or are you going to say, okay, we'll go back to taking some picks? The one thing that everyone seems to agree on is Detroit has one of the best prospect pools in the league, and I think that's a warranted assessment. But again, how long are those kids going to take before they're really ready to come in and contribute? So I think this will be a tough offseason, and mathematically. So if Detroit wins the rest of their 5 games, that's 10 more points. They'll have 98 points. That might be enough to get into that final 8 seed if the other teams, the 2 behind you and the 3 in front of you, lose most of their remaining games. The math just doesn't seem to work out.
Right. You don't want to depend on the other teams. Yep.
Right. You just don't control your own destiny. which Detroit has for most of this season, except for the past 7 weeks, and it's it's just so frustrating to see this happen again.
Yeah, well, one of the things you were talking about earlier is like, what culture are you building? And I've always contended that when a team announces a rebuild, what they're creating for sure is a rebuild culture.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, okay, we're going to play to win, we're not going to play to win now. We're going to play to win sometime, some unknown time in the future.
Yeah.
And for now, let's just play hockey the best we can. We'll bring up young guys, and anytime the major league team is teaching guys how to play,
right?
I don't want to watch this crap. That's a minor league thing. That should be in the minor leagues. It should not be brought up to the big leagues. So I just have a feeling what's been built is a rebuild culture, which is sort of a culture. It's kind of apathy in a lot of ways, especially when you don't know like what your goal really is other than play.
Yeah, what are you going for, and what are you willing to hold on to get better pieces later? Or are you just kind of plugging and playing as you go? I mean, it's the difference between, I'm an old car guy, and so like, do you want to restore a car, or do you want to just get it running? Those are two different projects, right?
Right.
And I think you're right. In this case, it feels like, well, we're just going to kind of get it running and plug in pieces. Now that said, we can't diminish. Some great draft selections, obviously, in Raymond and Mort Sider. Great trade to get to Brinkett to that kind of just lap because he wanted to come here. And Greg, you mentioned criticism of Larkin. I don't doubt that guy's heart for 1 second. He's typically the hardest working player, playing through a terrible injury right now. And I don't question his talent, but I think on the Stanley Cup reigning team, Dylan Larkin's a 2 seed. So if there were stronger depth, particularly down the middle, I think this is a different team. But is that the kind of identity you're going for? Do you want a fast north-south team that's just going to smother you with offense and forecheck? This is not a physical team by any stretch. No one's afraid to play this team.
Right.
And, back to culture and maybe in the room, if you don't have overwhelming talent like this team had, for a couple decades, then you're really relying more on culture. And, even with Stevie, when he was playing, like it was, he didn't hardly say anything at all, but no one wanted to piss him off and no one wanted him to come up to him and say, you need to give more. They didn't want that from him. Does anyone feel like that about Dylan? Is anyone afraid of Dylan Larkin grabbing him by the scruff, Lucas Raymond, and say, shoot the damn puck? Right? I mean, is that the kind of culture? I don't know. It doesn't feel like that's the case. And, if you don't have someone driving, if you don't have someone who hates losing more than they love winning, it's tough to have a culture built around that person.
I think you hit on something right there. I don't think it's about, and I've seen this line being tossed around on Reddit, on the Red Wings Reddit as well, is what you just said about this team doesn't hate to lose enough. And yes. I don't think and I think people who say that are onto something. I don't think it's about wanting to win, because every team in the NHL wants to win.
Everyone wants to win.
I believe that in my heart. However, I also believe that one of the reasons why the Red Wings have been overtaken by these other teams down the stretch is because I don't think that they hate to lose as much as the other teams hate to lose. And that's an indictment, of course. Let's go to Big Al now. What you got from that, Hunter?
Well, I guess while we're talking about culture and the off season and what we might be seeing, well, first off, they don't have a draft pick this year, obviously, now, because they got traded for Falk.
Yeah.
So there's nothing they can do for the most part in the draft. And what gets me about Steve Yzerman, the GM of the team, is that, listen to our podcast, and Nick goes all in on the issues he has with Tigers president of operations, Scott Harris. And there was legit reasons for it. There really were, with the way he's built the team and how they've spent money. Lions fans seem to be absolutely furious with Brad Holmes, how he's handling this offseason and how last season went. And at times it feels like they are, it's beyond the pale about how he's building the team. Then we see Steve Yzerman and how the fan base treats him. All I see is excuses. Well, Ken Holland left the creator of a team. They got screwed in the draft. There's been some injuries. He's building for the long term. And I find that infuriating that there is such a double standard in this town when it comes to how they talk about the general managers and how teams are built. Both Harris and Holmes have done magnitudes better of building their teams and actually accomplishing stuff on the field compared to Steve Yzerman. Yet all we hear of Yzerman is, well, he built one in Tampa and he's had a bad card dealt to him in Detroit. And I find that infuriating because if his name wasn't Steve Yzerman, he's probably fired a year ago.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And had he not brought the city 3 championships during his playing days, he wouldn't have that reputation. So he does get a pass. And while I think it's true that he inherited a really crappy hand.
Yes, he did.
When he took over, I think he's made some really questionable decisions and choices. We don't know what happens on, behind the scenes during, the trade deadline, but missing out on players, overpaying, I think, some guys on this roster still, like guys like Kopp and guys like Comfer. I don't know if you can justify a lot of the moves that were made relative to other options that he had, but there he sits, and I had read somewhere that there was. So long as Milanovich is still alive, Stevie will will never be out of that seat. And so
Keith Gave has said that over and over again. He's never going to get fired.
Yeah, and that maybe that changes.
Bump him up. There's a lot of talks that make him the president or something. Give him Jimmy Devellano's essential job or something.
Right,
like that.
Make him president and then make him.
Yeah.
But guys, another thing I was thinking about is because I'd read the same thing that someone said the same thing that you bump Stevie up to president and then make someone like Chris Draper GM. Okay. Yeah. Well, I remember like in the mid 2000s looking at teams like the Oilers and even the Canadians to some degree where it's all the good old boys.
Yeah.
It's all the guys from the glory days that are in the front office. And, that didn't seem to work in terms of bringing some of that magic in. And so I wonder if they do make that decision, would, Stevie's first job be to look for someone from the outside to come in and take over as GM rather than try and keep it all in-house in the family? Because I see that with other franchises that have been really successful, like an Oilers and like a Detroit team, and I don't see that work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this kind of follow up. What about Tom McClellan? All I hear from him is, we have just a bunch of jerseys out there. And he makes a lot of allusions to the lack of effort, and there's guys in the locker room that don't care enough. I don't see anybody being benched. I don't see a lot of huge changes in the lineup or in the lines. A lot of what he seems to be saying is just talk to me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't. If he's a problem, I don't think he's the main problem or a huge problem, because I think when Raymond was gotten through this slump, I think it was he was looking for easy offense and it wasn't coming, and so he wasn't working for it. Well, you put him down on the third line. Or a franchise cornerstone player that you've signed to a big contract, for your coach to bump him down to the third line is a bit of a message, and that seemed to work out. And if I look at the way the team is structured in terms of how they get into position and how they break out and enter the zone, often they're at least on the first entry they're doing the right thing, but then nobody does anything to follow it up. They're not cycling down the puck. They're not hard on the boards. They're not getting to the slot and taking shots. They're passing off here, there, and everywhere. Same on the power play. So the coach can only do so much. The coach can't make you shoot. The coach can't make you want to take that hard hit to dig a puck out of the corner and cycle it around for offense. And the times where they do that, and you've heard the players say this, we're going to have to check for offense. Well, the times when they do that, guess what? They win. And they score. But then the times when they don't, because to Greg's earlier point, they're going to have to outwork people. They don't have that much talent to win on talent. So, I see glimpses of what the coach can control getting done, but at the end of the day, it's the players who have to execute.
Yeah, and just to kind of follow up as well with the you mentioned the prospect pool. I saw in the Athletic as well that they had the minor league system rated as number 4. The thing is, though, it feels kind of top heavy because number 1 and number 2 were the 2 goalies, Kosa and Augustine, and then it feels like the rest of those guys that were listed were all none of those players that were all felt like they were those 200-foot guys who have high floors, low ceilings, and probably end up at best being a third line guy, maybe a second line guy.
Yeah,
there's no impact offensive players, and that is something Greg and Nick and I have all bitched about with the Red Wings philosophy. They don't take big swings in the draft for high ceiling guys who could become, all-star level players, or not even all NHL level players, because they desperately need impact offensive players. And DeBrincat's been great, but you need more than just him. And and Patrick Kane is 100 years old and don't get me going on that penalty he took yesterday. So there are some issues, I think, with how their philosophy in building this team.
That's a fair point. And the silver lining there is that maybe those are assets that you could flip to other teams for more immediate returns. But it gets back to what Nick said. Like, what's the identity of this team? What are you trying to build? Right. Mm-hmm. And having a bunch of sweethearts who are 6 foot 190 pounds that are great two-way centers, like, just I don't know if you need a bunch of those. Pardon my French, but this team needs a son of a bitch, and they don't have one. even in the modern era, right?
Yeah. So, when you're trading for David Perron again, try to get something like that,
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically why they got him, right? Because these guys are so soft and passive.
Right. And I really liked DP when he was here the first time, and I get the logic of that move, but again, he's 37 years old.
Yeah,
he's not 27, and so you need more players like that who are willing to do that. And I think there's an opportunity to turn some of these younger guys. You look at the Branson Nygaard; he's a real solid guy. But someone else has to teach them how to play like that, and they have to see the result of that. Because I think the other thing too is that throughout all of certainly Larkin's tenure, and then you look at Raymond, you look at Sider, all they know how to do is lose. They've never tasted what winning looks like. And even if they were to have got in one of the past 2 years and lost in 4 straight in the first round, that's not great, but at least you got there. At least you have a sense of what it's like.
That's what I've been saying for a long time. And the other thing about that, Matt, is that, and in my piece about Larkin, which it wasn't really a hit piece on him. It was just more like when are we going to take a look at him as being a potential problem? One of the things I said was, and it's not his fault, is that he himself has no real playoff experience under his belt. He made the playoffs as a rookie, as a 19-year-old rookie. He was maybe 20 when the playoffs started, back in 16, his rookie season. That was it, and that was the only right. Yeah. That was the only time he's ever made the playoffs. So it's not even like he himself can look back at any sort of I've been in the playoffs, I've been through the wars, I know what it's like.
Right.
They've played a lot of playoff-like games in the last couple of years in March, where you can make the case that every game they've played in March has been a quote-unquote playoff game because of its ramifications. But as well as I do that that's still not the same thing.
It's not the same.
A quote-unquote big game on March 22nd against Buffalo, is a 4-point game is not the same as playing in a playoff series. It just isn't. And so I'm with you on that. I've been saying that for a long time that Stevie's reluctance to get it to want to have a team that can make it to the playoffs. His whole thing is, but I don't want to make the playoffs unless we're going to win the cup, kind of a thing. And he himself played on teams, as you know.
Yeah.
As a player, who, especially in his early years, they had no chance of winning the Stanley Cup. But they pushed the Oilers in 2 straight years. They pushed the Oilers a little bit, and his first 2 years as being captain. 1 year when he hurt his knee, and they soldiered on without him. Jacques won Coach of the Year 2 years in a row. Yeah. And it seems like his playing career is not doesn't run. It runs antithesis to the way he sees the team now. I want to read to all of you guys something that I found a little bit troubling in today's Free Press. Helene St. James was talking to Andrew Kopp about this situation, this slump, and she asked Kopp what he and the team feels about what's going on with this whole slump. And he says, this is Kopp. He says, I think we've got to find a way to not let it weigh on us. We've got to find a way to free ourselves up. As soon as we let the outside noise and you guys, meaning the reporters, start to impact what we're doing in here, that's when issues start to happen. So you've got to find a way to have fun with it, play free. Then he says, I think the heaviness, it feels a little heavy for sure. I mean, you guys, once again, the reporters, you guys have jobs to do. Fans have, that's what it is. It is what it is. That's on us to not let it creep in. The reason I found that troubling is that's another thing. This is to all of your guys' points. That good teams don't let that stuff bother them. Good teams don't say, you reporters are weighing in on, are making it heavy for us. The fans are making it heavy for us.
Stop saying such bad things.
Yeah,
essentially.
And McClellan. Then Helene asked Todd McClellan about that, and he said, "Let's see here. Well, outside noise. If we're reading and buying into all of that, then shame on us. Maybe that's part of our mental resilience. We can't worry about what goes on out there. We've got to worry about what goes on in here." We had a little chat about that between the second and third periods, meaning the game against who did they just play?
The Wild, Minnesota.
Wild.
Minnesota. Yeah. We had a little chat between the second and third period, and that was made quite clear to them. We come out and respond, but the consistency were like a wave. We crest and then crash, and then it has to change. So I know I made the illusion that maybe we should Occam's razor this thing, but I think there really is something to this, and we've all worked jobs. I think on this podcast, we've all worked jobs that are not sports jobs, that are just regular jobs where it wasn't right. The mix of people wasn't right. The culture wasn't right. You had a bad boss. You had a bad situation, and it doesn't matter what everybody really says. It just perpetuates itself. And I think that's what the Red Wings are in a situation like that. They've been around. A lot of these guys have been around together 3-4 years. They've all, to your point, Matt. None of them have won anything, and nobody can really look at each other and say that guy's a winner. And I know they brought some guys who won the cup in, but they've been peripheral guys. And Al mentioned Kane being 1,000,000 years old and that stupid penalty last night, and there's not enough of that. And the guys that really need to lead haven't won anything.
Right.
So, Greg, I'm gonna let me just add in one other thing along with what you said. One thing that stuck out to me from many, many years ago when Dylan Larkin was in his first couple seasons, and they started losing and they started really hitting the skids. Yeah. And I think Ken Holland was the GM still at that time, so he didn't want to declare a rebuild or anything like that. Right. But they were going on long losing streaks, and the press always went to Dylan Larkin to get his reactions on this. And it was always that sort of reaction, like what you read from Kopp. I remember that sticking in my head. It's we got to play better. We got to do this. We got to do something different. And to me, that's a losing mentality.
Yeah.
And that's probably consistent with what you guys are saying, that Dylan Larkin hasn't seen what winning actually looks like.
Right.
Never mind that they might be above 500, crap like that.
Right.
But he hasn't seen shit as far as what's a winning mentality. And like you guys are saying, with the few guys that have won cups, like Patrick Kane, where the fuck is he during all this? He's won 3 cups. He knows what it takes. I think he's just playing he's kind of like Miguel Cabrera in his last 2 or 3 seasons with the Tigers, just there.
Yeah,
having fun, so to speak.
There's 77 games into this season, and they're still talking. This is stuff. If you're going to say this at all, this is stuff you say in December or November.
Right.
Not when there's 5 games left to go in the season. Matt, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, Greg, what you said in terms of working different jobs, and I'm sure in different ways, we've all been in situations where, for a variety of reasons, you're under pressure, not necessarily going to get fired or something, but like, you're put under so much pressure that you can either fall apart or fight through it, and either put the extra hours in or do whatever you need to do to win at whatever you're trying to do, and depending on how you're made up, you're either going to get some kind of fuel and some passion from that to say, you're not going to beat me, whatever that thing is, or you're going to let it crush you. And I don't know if it was any of the cup year teams, but I recall, like, 15 years ago, teams were posting bad articles in the locker room from the media. They can't win, or they're too old, or this or that, as inspiration, as f you, we're not gonna take that. And now it seems like teams, and I haven't heard this just from Detroit teams, but from other teams too, it's like, well, we can't. I mean, look at Toronto, for Christ's sake. But they talk about the media pressure too much. Well, what do you think all that money's for, guys? I mean, you're getting paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to play a game. There's going to be some pressure involved when the fans paying your salary want to see you win. And if you can turn that into some kind of positive motivation, that's going to be a lot more helpful to you to bring in the room than say, well, we're not going to worry about that, and we're just going to try and be loose and have fun. I mean, it just, I thought the same thing. The other thing I'll mention, back to, if you remember a couple years ago, when they just, they were right there. They're playing Montreal.
Yep.
They come back on that game, they win. I mean, it just, I was watching my kids, we were going nuts.
Perron scores that goal with like a second to go or something.
With a second, like 2 seconds to go. And for 1 second, we figure finally we're in the playoffs again. And then I think it was Philly scored the empty net, and the you can't make this shit up.
Right.
But I remember thinking, like, the next day, because if you also remember, that's when Gossenspier, that was his one season on the team, and he made that leap to get the puck to keep it in, and they score. I mean, that's the kind of thing, man, if they can get some momentum from that over next season and keep that group together and get a little bit, then the problem wasn't scoring, it was keeping it out of the net. Get better defensively, but it's like, maybe this is a core to build around. But Gossenspier left, and Perron left to Carolina. So I've seen Gossenspier here where I'm at now, and then to Ottawa for contracts that weren't amazing, and for term that wasn't crazy. Right? These were gettable players that elected to leave, and that made me nervous at the time, thinking, okay, these are veteran guys, and everyone wants to go win a cup. But if they really felt they had something here, not that Detroit would have won the cup the next season, but that would have been something to build on, and they didn't. And again, it gets back to at the start of the show, like, there's a culture problem with this team. There's no other way to look at it, I think.
Yeah. After that season, we were having conversations about this, and like, what Steve Yzerman does next after that season will be a big deal. It's like, can he build on it, or are they going to regress? And we actually weren't sure on here, and obviously they regressed last year.
They did,
I mean, it's quite bad, and to the point where they fired the coach halfway through the season. So, and I think part of it too is, one other thing we were talking about is, like, do the players feel like the front office is behind them, getting them what they need to help them win and make those adjustments? And I just think that's another place I think the front office has just fallen flat.
Yeah, I mean, again, you look at Buffalo. I mean, they didn't do anything other than fire their GM, who's not playing any of the games. But whatever that meant to that team, I mean, it was just that flipped the switch. No roster change, no coaching change. I mean, Lindy Ruff is there again. I mean, he's been there for a million years. All they did was fire their GM. And I'm not suggesting that should or is even possible happening with Yzerman. But to your point, Nick, I mean, the fish stinks from the head down. Right? Mm-hmm. So if something's not right at the top, that's going to come all the way down into the locker room. And I think maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's the players feeling that because it's Steve Yzerman and it's the Red Wings, you just have to just do whatever he says, because who's going to talk back, or who's going to challenge whatever Stevie Y says in Detroit? Maybe the aura is too big. I don't know. And this is my, this is Greg Eno. This is my hockey hero. I got my Stevie Y pick right here. I mean, so I love the guy, but the results speak for themselves, and the results are nothing.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Before we let you go, I want to ask you a couple of NHL related questions, because this is an unusual situation. I've never known two NHL teams to fire their coaches this late in the season, who were both kind of in the mix. Vegas, of course, fired their coach and brought in Torts. The Islanders just fired their coach. I think they brought in Peter DeBoer, I think.
Yes.
And so they're in the playoff hunt. These guys are getting fired with like less than 10 games to go in the season. I remember Lou Lamoriello did it with the Devils one year, when Lou fired the coach and took over as coach himself.
Yeah. Well, if I'm not mistaken, he did it twice. He did it to Robbie Fatorik and then Larry Robinson, of all people.
Right. Yeah, and then I think Philip Zito did the same thing. Espo fired whoever was the coach at the time and he installed himself as coach late in the year, and that fizzled out. So it really hasn't worked very much. But were you surprised by those two moves?
The Vegas one, just because they haven't had a great year. They got Mitch Marner, and that hasn't looked like, at least to this point, that's really kind of proven out. So, but I haven't followed that team, especially now being East Coast based. I don't see a lot of West Coast games, but the Islanders one though kind of made some sense, because they're still kind of in there, and I guess my bias is showing. I'm never going to feel sympathy for Patrick Waugh or think that he's the right guy for any job. So, maybe that's my bias showing, right? And Greg, you and I have talked before, and this is true, never in the history of the NHL has a goalie coach ever won a cup.
Yeah.
So,
that's
true.
Really?
There's something to it there. Yeah, never. Yeah. So, if you hire a former goalie as your coach, good luck with that.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about Tortorella is he was only given a contract for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So this is literally like a 2-week contract, which I found really amazing.
That's genius.
Torts is kind of nuts in that, he's willing to take a flyer on that. That might have been his idea, right? He's like, figure, I'll stick here, and if I do really well, then I'm in the driver's seat, and I'll get a better contract next
I think
year.
there were probably a lot of baseball teams that would have liked to have hired Billy Martin for like 3 months.
Yeah. So the Vegas one seemed a little odd, but Islanders made sense. And again, Patrick Waugh aside, something had to change, because that team was kind of streaky, but then starting to come together and then falling off again. Yeah. So it's worth a shot to see what maybe that'll give us a boost. I
guess you got nothing to lose. Al, you got anything before we love?
Yeah. Since we're talking big picture stuff, I wanted to get Matt's thoughts on the long mid-season breaks for things like the Four Nations and the Olympics. Because I got to be honest, I really enjoyed the quality of hockey. But there's always the fear of injuries and the fact that they're off for 2 weeks or more. But I guess there's a trade-off there, because NHL loves the promotion, they want to expand the game, so on and so forth, and of course, it seems to do great on television. What are your thoughts on these mid-season tournament-like stretches?
I think I'm the same as you. The Four Nations, I thought, conceptually was great until I saw it, and then I thought, oh my God, they should do that every season.
Exactly.
The USA Canada games that was some of the best hockey I've ever seen in my life. Period. It was amazing. But of course, then you have to figure out what's the risk to your team, and of course, both Larkin and Raymond came back banged up from the Four Nations. Then there was a long stretch this season. Again, amazing hockey. But, I think, I don't like that it puts a big wedge into the season. Yeah. But, if to the degree that anyone, now just talking about the Red Wings, would look at that as well, we had to deal. Well, everyone had to deal with that. Yeah. Maybe part of the problem goes back to the roster construction, where, if you look at a team like Florida, they had maybe, I think, 4 or 5 guys go to the Olympics. They could have had 4 or 5 more go. Yeah. Detroit, there was 3 guys who could have gone, and they all went. right? You didn't have any Olympic level caliber players on your team to help sustain you and help some of those guys recover coming back. So your very best guys were playing, relentless hockey the whole way through, come back to the team, and obviously been different players since then. So, if the NHL said we're not going to do that stuff anymore, we're just going to play straight through, and you're not going to see any of that Four Nations or NHL players in the Olympics, I wouldn't cry about it. But of course, when it comes, it has been amazing hockey to watch.
Yeah, because you hear baseball trying to figure out when's the best time to have the World Baseball Classic, which beyond exhibition games, but still some very entertaining baseball. And realistically, the only realistic time to do it is before the season. But then it's like I said, it screws up training camp and it really screws up rosters. Like you had to Scooble side. Well, I'll pitch one game and then I'm going to go back to my preparation. Then he saw how cool it was. Goes, well, damn, I think I made a mistake. I want to pitch more. But he'd already committed back to the Tigers. So yeah, these big tournaments are awesome. The scheduling is always going to be the monkey wrench.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Matt Hutter, thanks. This has been a lot of fun.
It's been a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for having me. Yeah,
it's been great, and we'll
wish it was under happier circumstances.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we can't bring you back and talk some more and
anytime. Let me know. Yeah, it's great to see you guys again. Good to meet you.
I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Y'all take care. Bye bye.
Take care.
Right.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Matt. Thanks anyway, Nick. But it was fun talking to Matt because before the show, Matt says I went through my emails and I said, it goes, Al, the last time I had an email from you was 2014.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah. That was probably around the last time he was doing podcasts with us.
Yeah, for sure.
But I still had it. I know, Greg, you gave me his email, and it was in my contacts still. So, yeah. All right, but with that, we still got Greg's on a heart out. Yeah. So we'll see where things take us for the next half hour or so. But before we get to any of those other topics, Greg, we have a game you like to play.
We have a game that we like to call Whose Birthday Is It, Maestro? Everybody knows how we play this game by now. I'll give Al and Nick a clue or two or three of an individual whose birthday it is today in the world of sports. And if one of those gentlemen can correctly guess this person within the first two clues, today he will win a lifetime pass on the People Mover, the Detroit People Mover.
I love going in circles.
All right.
You can go any way you want as long as you're going in the same direction as the people.
Yes.
Okay, this person was born in the state in 1965, so he's 61 years old today. He made his name in the world of football. He is a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He is a receiver. He made his careers. The only team he ever played for was in what is now called the NFC North, but when he played, it was called the NFC Central.
Played in the black and blue division his entire career when it was still the Central. So that also throws a Buccaneer into the mix, apparently. Huh. Hall of Famer. What you said he was receiver, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that could mean wide out or could mean a tight end, but it's probably a wide receiver. Oh God. Any ideas, Nick?
I'm trying to think of the time he would have played then. Is
88
that where
to
the
94. 88 to 94.
88 to 94.
94. Okay.
Because I was thinking, because it could be a Lion or something like that, but the ones I'm thinking of, weren't a Hall of Famer. They were like Hall of Very Good.
Mm-hmm.
And so
88 to 94, he only at all. So he only played like 6 years?
That's a short 7 years, and he said he's a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Holy crap, what did he do?
It was very good, is what he did.
Apparently so. Like, holy crap.
Would it be the Sterling Sharp?
Yes. Sharp. Sterling Sharp it is. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who could be it. I think it has to be a Packer because, who else could it? It's the only one I could think of. And then, the man who broke our hearts in that damn playoff game.
That was going to be my next clue was that.
Mm-hmm.
That 1993 playoff game where he was all alone in the end zone.
Yeah.
And Favre found him. Yep. Sterling Sharp. I didn't know I did not know that Sterling Sharp only played 7 years. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I thought it seemed longer.
Yeah, and it's because he played in the Lions division. That's why. But
Yeah.
he made the Hall of Fame. He had over 8,000, more than 8,000 receiving yards, 65 touchdowns, 600 catches almost. Not bad for 7 years.
Yeah.
Good enough for the Hall of Fame. Sterling.
Did he have an injury end his career? Was it injury?
Was it an injury?
Because that's an awfully short time. Like,
we did have injuries. Yeah. He had some vertebrae. Yeah, maybe it was. Yeah. He had a neck. Yeah, he had a neck abnormality. That's what. Good call. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a neck injury. Yeah, you're right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah, because he was only 29 when he retired. So.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is, as they say, where you go, there you are, or something like that. Something that would to the people move. We're going in circles. So I'll be awaiting my tickets, Greg. So
right.
or my token or whatever. God, I haven't ridden the People Mover in years. Good Lord, But anyway, because we got to get moving here because we're on a time limit here. We need to talk Pistons because things are going well with them. They clinched the number 1 seed in the East, got 4 games to play. They're playing right now, as a matter of fact. They're playing Orlando, and you can tell that they're already in rest mode because guys like Chaz Lanier and Tolo Smith are playing tonight. So, but the big story out of all this is Cade Cunningham, who's missed the last several games of collapsed lung. It came out today that he might play one more game this season. The same goes for Isaiah Stewart, but the thing with Cade Cunningham is now missing the injuries causing him to miss these games. Is that right now he's stuck 61 games. He's likely at most going to play 62 this year. The NBA has this cutoff for awards as this MVP and All NBA at 65 games. So that immediately says Cade Cunningham can't be All NBA. He can't get any MVP votes because he's likely would have been a top 5 guy at least. And caught up in this as well, guys, Anthony Edwards of Minnesota, and just this past weekend, Luka Dončić. He hurt his hamstring. He's likely going to be out for the rest of the year, maybe well into the playoffs. So their MVP candidacy says, and All NBA for that matter, has gone up in smoke. I mean, Victor Wembanyama and Nikola Jokic can only miss one more game. If they miss one more game, they will be ineligible. Hell, the Pistons. It's really weird because the Pistons are playing. Jalen Duren is playing tonight, and they're like, why? Because he has played 65 games, but he hasn't played enough minutes because you have to average 20 minutes a game, and he's had like 3 games where he played less than 15 minutes. So now they're stuck playing him in meaningless games so he can be eligible for All NBA and Defensive Player and Most Improved Player. It's absolutely ridiculous. And obviously this rule was started because of load management, but all the guys we've talked about, they didn't miss games because of load management. They all were legitimately injured. Specifically, Cade Cunningham has a goddamn the collapsed lung. So the Players Association has called for this rule to be abolished or reformed, or they need to create an exception for serious injuries. And meanwhile, the NBA has doubled down on this. Adam Silver was asked about this, and at the time said, well, the only player was affected is Cade Cunningham. Well, not anymore. So I want to get your guys' take on the 65-game rule and how it's kind of blown up in the NBA's faces, because for the most part, guys, it's not hurting guys with load management. It's hurting guys who play games and get hurt.
It seems like everything's blowing up in the NBA's faces this year.
Very much so.
Like literally everything. And and this is one of those things. What happens if Jokic or was it SGA has like one more game and he's out of it?
SGA is eligible. It's Wembanyama.
Imagine those two are out of it too. Then who's left? And are they going to say SGA gets it because he's fine? He's not going to get the criticism like you're there just, what do you call it? What's the expression when you get promoted just because everybody else leaves?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
Peter Principle?
No. It's kind of like You're getting promoted because of
Like the
attrition,
Colts?
basically. So yeah. They got nobody else to give it to, basically.
Yeah, you're going to have a bunch of third-team NBA guys winning first-team NBA, for example.
That's
or,
right.
Or something
that's
to
right.
that effect, yeah.
And the other thing that it hurts though. So if these players don't hit that that arbitrary magic cutoff mark, they don't get those accolades. And so come contract time, they can't say, "Hey, I was all NBA that year."
Right.
Yeah, or there's contact kickers as well. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So I'm not surprised that the Players Association is saying something about this.
Yeah, as they should.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I it's one of those things that probably was well-meaning when they thought of it, and they thought maybe that sounded like something they could do to kind of dissuade load management. But I remember Patrick Ewing. I think I said this to you guys, at least maybe via text, if not on the show. Patrick Ewing won the 1985 Rookie of the Year. He played 50 games. 50.
Yeah.
50. Now, part of that was he's Patrick Ewing. He's played in New York. I get it. Why not just make it so that who I don't even know who votes for MVP these honors.
Yeah.
Is it the writers, sports writers? Who?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the writers, coaches, or who, or combination. I'm not sure.
Leave this up to their discretion. If they're looking at a guy who's played 57 games or 56 games as well, and if that particular voter's mind, that player hasn't played enough, well, then he doesn't vote for him. Let everybody just kind of go on their own merits. It's going to get ridiculous. I don't expect people to vote for guys who played 40 games, of course, but make it at least maybe 50 is the magic number. I don't know. I don't know. Nick makes a very good point though about contract negotiations.
Yeah.
Or incentives. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Incentives that are written into contracts that say, hey, you get this bonus if you win, or if you feel it. Sometimes it's like even if you finish in the top 3 of MVP voting, you get some sort of a bonus. And to just delete guys from that simply because of injuries, and I would hate for a player, and I feel bad for that player, whoever becomes MVP, if he's winning it just because a bunch of other guys were ineligible. That's not good for that player either. It's like a very tarnished award. Yeah,
you'll start hearing asterisk being used, but you never want to hear.
Asterisk territory.
Yeah. But it's kind of gotten, and as they say, Greg, the path to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right.
And you're right. There was good intentions behind this, but they overcorrected to the point where now they're hurting legitimately injured players who have legitimate arguments to be all NBA or MVPs or all defense, whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think what just bugged me the most was Adam Silver's reaction to it when it was just Cade Cunningham.
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, it's just one player, blah blah blah. We did this for a reason." And honestly, I haven't seen load. I don't know about you guys, but I really haven't noticed load management being this evil thing anymore.
No.
There's just games where guys get hurt and they get sat, and they're not going to play 82 games. They're probably going to play closer to 70, in a 70, 72 or something like that would be, I think, what they're kind of aiming for most of these guys. And that's still not to say these games won't be entertaining. The Pistons OKC game last week, where the Pistons were missing their entire starting lineup, was still a hellaciously entertaining game that went to overtime.
Right.
Yes, you didn't get to see Cade Cunningham, but you still got to see a hellaciously entertaining game.
And to show you how talented the league is, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
when you get,
Go ahead.
I was just saying, when you got a guy like Dennis Jenkins stepping right in there, and the Pistons don't miss a beat on offense, that right there, Greg, describes how talented guys are in this league anymore.
Well, getting back to what you said about Silver, didn't Silver have another kind of a dismissive response? Remember there was that thing about how a lot of fans can't watch their teams play.
Yes, when it came to streaming,
And Silver had that kind of dismissive. Well, they can watch the highlights.
No, that's exactly. They can watch it on Twitter and TikTok.
He's got this let them eat cake attitude. I don't like that.
Yes.
One of the things I was thinking of is like with this whole qualifying for all these NBA awards, but also, they they put that standard in there to get rid of the whole load management thing and make sure these guys play.
Yeah.
But then there's the other part too is there's another problem that the NBA is facing, and they're kind of like half-assing solutions for this too, is the whole tanking thing that we've talked about before.
Oh yeah, so all those weird solutions they're throwing out there. Yeah,
and it's just so convoluted and complicated, and it's like, okay, if the system's there to allow teams to tank, they're going to tank if they think they can get away with it. You know, are they going to get fined? Fine. The team is paying like individual players $40 to $60 million. You think a few $100,000 is going to be much of a big deal?
Yeah.
So no, they're just going to factor it in as like the cost of doing business. So I think the NBA kind of systemically has something that they need to think about, and in putting these sort of like little punitive measures as though, let's punish the bad teams for tanking, or let's, punish the teams for sitting out their stars when the fans want to see the stars. Like, that shit doesn't work. It just doesn't work at all. And I think the problem is that the NBA is, a lot of the things that they're doing are getting stale, and all these little Band-Aids are just not going to go anywhere.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because some of those tanking solutions were just off the wall. It's like, this is just going to make it worse. Or this is just going to make it to the point where fans have no clue as to what's going on when it comes to this stuff. Now, I've always been the part that I hate lotteries. I hate all this stuff. Worst team gets the best pick. No, it works fine in the NFL, even though I know it's apples to oranges when it comes to the players. But still, it's just gotten to the point where I'm just, when it comes to tanking, it's whatever. But then again, it's nice to be a fan of a team that's not tanking anymore. But the thing is also, a lot of these teams, when you bring up tanking, Nick, a lot of these teams made moves to, like, let's go with with Milwaukee right now, with the Greek Freak. He wants to play. The team says, no, we're not going to play you right now, because they're playing for lottery position, and again, the Players Association is getting involved in this because really it's greasing the skids for him to leave, because he's healthy. He says, I'm healthy. I want to play. I want to finish the season on the court, and the Bucks are saying no, and that right there is what's wrong with the NBA because of of the tanking. It's ridiculous.
They would never do this. They would never, ever, ever, ever do this. But I would love for them to do this. If they would say, okay, you know what? The 8 teams from each conference that make the playoffs.
Yeah.
You're gonna automatically draft by position. You get the last 8 spots. Everybody else goes into the hopper.
Yeah.
Better yet, the top 4 teams go on the bottom, and 5 through whatever that is go in the hopper. And I don't care if number 5 goes in the lottery first. If you eliminate that, in other words, if the teams don't know ahead of time who's going to get the number 1 pick, because it's literally left up to chance, that'll forget the tanking. Tanking will go bye-bye. Now all of a sudden, now you've got a team that is a bottom feeder could end up being a bottom feeding drafting team. A team that's in the middle could end up with the number 1 overall pick. It'll never happen, and nobody's going to like it, I don't think. But that would end the tanking thing if they said top 4 teams in each conference, you get the bottom 4 picks for sure. Everybody else, it was good, and make it even, make it completely even. None of this weighted stuff. Everybody gets the same chance. Seed number 12 gets the same chance as seed number 6 to get that number 1 overall pick. Tanking will go bye-bye. Tanking will go absolutely bye-bye.
We need to get you on the competition committee.
I have a different view. Like even more extreme is like the best team gets the first pick.
Yeah.
And then the worst team, fuck them. They didn't do well. They want to tank. Screw it. Why bother? Wasting the most talented player in the draft on a shitty team. Yeah. And
get really. If you're going to get creative, get really creative like that. Yeah. And that would just shake up the league to no end, and then they would make changes after that. That would be the way to go.
And then let the fans say, "Screw you! I'm not going to see you if you're going to play that. You're going to build a shitty team like this." And that allows really good players to actually have time on a good team instead of being on one of these chronic bottom feeders that are going to drive this guy's career into the ground.
Yeah.
So yeah, why not? And I saw what the NBA was proposing, like 3 different schemes for the lottery. I'm like, what the? I had to read it several times. Like, what the hell is this?
Mm-hmm.
It was just so half-assed and so complicated and lazy that it made no sense. I think Adam Silver's got a shitstorm coming.
Yeah, he does.
All kinds of reasons in the NBA, and I think things need to change.
Yeah.
Since I was watching that ABA documentary, I want another league to come in and challenge them again, innovate a little bit, slam dunks and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a shitstorm, we had a shitstorm with Jaden Ivey over the past week or so.
Oh, God.
The Bulls ultimately waived him, the former Pistons guard who the Pistons traded at the trade deadline, after he spewed anti-LGBTQ plus bile on social media, and he also called Catholicism a false religion, which went over really, really well. And for that matter, now apparently there's videos out him of him being a street preacher. And he's done a lot of social media stuff where he essentially has gone off the deep end on religion. People are, is this a real thing with him? Is he having a mental breakdown? No one knows for sure. But regardless of that, the Bulls want nothing to do with it. And I have a feeling most NBA teams are not going to want anything to do with it, which is kind of crazy to see all this because how many people were so upset about that trade at the time. Because I think Pistons fans loved the idealized thought of Ivy, not what Ivy really was, and he was never going to turn into that player. Meanwhile, Kevin Huerter looks like he's going to be a rotation piece in the playoffs, and the pick swap is going to work. They're probably going to pick 20th instead of 28th or something like that. So apparently, I have a feeling that the Pistons knew what Ivy was like, and apparently there was word I've seen reported out of Chicago saying the Bulls were warned that he was a preacher, quote unquote preacher. So, excuse me. So this sounds like it had been coming for a while with Ivy, that he's kind of been sliding off the deep end. And once the Bulls essentially said you're sitting for the year, whatever happened, that opened the floodgates of him. And guys, it's like he's speed running his way out of the league.
I got a kick out of folks who said, "Oh, he should sue," and for what?
Oh yeah, and the free speech people who don't know what free speech means. Yes.
Right. I mean, if I as a regular Joe Schmo employee go on social media and start being homophobic and saying all the things that Ivy said, and if I could get called out for it, and I could lose my job.
Yeah.
I mean, employers don't have. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of an NBA player's contract, obviously, but employers have every right to terminate. I mean, not every right, but have a lot of rights to terminate an employee, no matter, basically whenever they want. So I don't know what this whole sue them. He should sue the Bull for what?
Yeah,
sue them for what?
He got paid.
I mean, it's. I don't know what happened with him. I really don't. I don't know if it happened after the injury. I really don't. I really can't tell because when he was here and getting minutes, the team was so bad. I didn't really pay attention that much to Ivy himself. All I knew was that he was this really fast kid who had a lot of potential, and I thought he could possibly be Robin to Cade's Batman. And I really thought that the pair of them might be a pretty dynamic pair in the NBA. Yeah. And I don't know if what we're seeing now has been exacerbated by that knee injury he had, or that injury he had on New Year's Day 2025, or if he always had those tendencies and this just brought it out in him. But something went askew. And it seems to me that it seems to have gone askew after the injury, but it could just be me.
Yeah.
I know that Ivy has said religious things in interviews before his injury. So
there was a post-game thing where he said something about the rapture, for Christ's sake. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I do think it got exacerbated after the injury, and I don't think it's not just religion, because Cade is religious. Cade will say things like,
So is Kerry Carpenter.
and so's Dennis Jenkins. There's a lot of guys.
Hell,
like
you
that.
remember John Kitna? He always wore a baseball
Yep.
cap with a cross on it. Yeah.
You know, religion in the locker room is not a new thing.
No.
So not at all. That's been around forever.
Sure.
So that's not the issue. Like something else, just kind of like he lost it. By the way, as far as the Bulls go, I don't know if you guys saw that, but the owner fired the president and GM today. So, and my guess is the Ivy thing was the nail on the coffin of this. But Ivy, something else is going on. There's like conflicting reports about his wife not knowing where he is, or his wife supporting him. It's like he's kind of like all over the place. It's just like some of it sounds like it's almost like a person has newly found religion of some kind, and is always like a little bit too kind of like too much.
He wants to he wants to what's the word?
He's got all this zeal and wants to like.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. Like shout from the rooftops.
Well, he wants to proselytize.
Exactly.
That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah.
I mean, I see that with people that suddenly change their diet and feel healthier, or start working out and think everybody else should work out. Why aren't you working out?
Yeah.
But something intensified now, and like, not that I'm saying like, okay, stop being religious or anything, but come down to earth. You have a family. You need, you gotta like live somehow, like income, and like you gotta live a life. So
well, there's a difference between like Kerry. I mentioned Kerry Carpenter. There's a difference between, and you mentioned Jenkins and so forth. There's a difference between giving thanks to God, for example, in a post-game interview or something, and being positive and so forth.
Yeah.
But Ivy's rhetoric was hateful.
Yes.
It wasn't so much pro religion as it was anti punching. It was punching down. There was LGBTQ stuff in there. Catholicism is a false religion thing. There's no reason to do that. I've never heard Kerry Carpenter say anything like that, or I've never heard guys.
I'm not a fan of the God stuff I see in these interviews. But as you said, they're not shoving it down. They're not doing what Ivy's doing exactly, it's being hateful. You nailed it. Yes,
they're not weaponizing it. He's
that's another good way to put it. Exactly.
And who knows what was going on in the locker room? So something else had to go on more than just the guy saying, God is behind me, kind of thing.
Yeah, because as you said, Nick, there's lots of guys in that locker room who have faith. Be it whatever their religion might be, and that is not out of the ordinary in pro sports. You see that all the time, like we've all said. But for it to get to that point, where the Pistons said, I think it was a bit too much, and that's really. And there was a lot of talk, especially people that watched a lot of the Pistons games, that said that Ivy's body language just didn't look like he wanted to be there, or he was unhappy, or he was just off for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And now here we are. So damn awful, but. I'm glad it's not the Pistons' problem anymore. Could you picture if this going on right now and he was still on the Pistons roster, and when they're trying to set up for the playoffs? Oh my God, it would have been a shit show.
Yeah.
So Trajan Langton knew what he was doing. That's pretty obvious at this point.
I'm thinking the Pistons would have cut bait with him if it got that bad.
Yeah, and you're right, because he's going to be a free agent anyway. So
right, and. And it's not helping the team at all. And these guys are trying to stay focused on, playing and winning games and getting ready for playoffs. So, it's too bad.
I guess what we're talking about. I want to get Greg's opinion on this before he gets out of here, because he's only got about 5 minutes. Got to touch on the Lions, and they did it again, as they did with Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson. The Detroit Lions made Frank Ragnow repay part of his signing bonus, who retired early last year. He had 2 years left on his contract. He didn't say how much they got from him, but it was obviously a significant amount. Retiring team president Rod Wood, who has said some interesting things now that he's going out, specifically in regard to COVID. It's another, where he said went on about vaccinations. His quote was, "Our president goes all the way back to Barry Sanders. I think the reality is they're not paying back their money. They're returning our money because they were paid in advance for services that they hadn't completed." Legally, he's in the right. they signed contracts. This is in the contract. They had the legal right to do this. The question is, the optics are absolutely horrible, Greg.
They really are, and it's so. He did say something. It's funny that he would call attention to the Barry Sanders thing. Our precedent goes all the way back to Barry. We know. We know, Rod. We know that. That's the problem. And it's almost like he's proud of that precedent. We did this with Barry Sanders. I mean, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
And you mentioned Cal. I don't know how many times I've said on this program how many times the Lions have dissed their past. They didn't honor Joe Schmidt. They didn't. They gave Charlie Sanders' number away to a rookie. I mean, they do these things. It defies description. Why they do some of the things that they do. I don't know what they get from this other than bad publicity. It's not. Apparently, they don't care about bad publicity. He had another strange. He said he made an example. He said, "Well, what if we paid Jahmyr Gibbs a $25 million? I think is what he said. $25 million signing bonus or extension or whatever, and he gets hurt the first game he plays, or he gets hurt in training camp. Is out for. Shouldn't we get that $25 million back? I mean, he's like doubling down on this money. Yeah. It's like, for a franchise that's worth, I don't know how much money the Lions are worth. I really don't know. It's got to be in the billions, obviously.
Yeah, it's in the billions. That's
I don't know what it is, but for these guys to be squawking about, these are a few nickels to these guys. And when I say these guys, the Lions, these are nickels. When we're talking about a few $1 million. What was it with Ragnow? How much money was it?
They didn't say. They wouldn't say.
Okay, I mean, it can't, but it couldn't have been that much money.
No.
I tell you what gets me really frustrated though are the fans who side with management. I saw a lot of folks on Lions Reddit say, "Well, fair is fair. He didn't. Trying to justify the management's position on this." And these are the same people that will complain about it's too much to go to a game, it's too much to park, it's too much for a beer, it's too much for a hot dog, and they're backing management here just because because they like Sheila Hamp. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand what the mindset is here. It's a classic example of just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I don't know what they think they're going to get out of this, other than just having to fend off. It's odd. It's really odd.
Yeah. Well, before we Nick talks a bit, do you want to get out of here, Greg? Because it's almost that time. So I don't want you to feel like you need to hang on longer to wrap up the conversation.
No, I just wanted to, before I go, I just wanted to thank Matt Hutter. I know you guys probably do that anyway, but thank Matt Hutter for being with us. Great conversation about hockey. Absolutely. It really just the Wayback Machine. I felt like I was back in 2012 talking to Matt again. It was a lot of fun. Follow me on X at Greg Eno, and of course subscribe to my Substack, gregeno.substack.com. I will be in your inbox every Monday, and I would appreciate that. I want to, of course, thank my lovely wife, Sharon, and thank you guys. But I got to go, and have a great rest of the show.
All right. Now Nick and I can talk Wolverines and trash EMU. So, all right, Greg. Well, we'll see you in a couple weeks. We'll be in touch.
Okay. See you guys.
See you. Bye.
All right, Nick. What are your thoughts on the on this? The like I said, the optics are horrible, and I can see the legality. The contract is a contract. I can see the legalities of all this, but Greg's right. This is pocket change to the Lions essentially.
So this was going to be Rod Wood was going to be my jerk of the week. So I don't.
Oh, we can save it if you want. Yeah.
I don't have a replacement, but I can either do it now or when we go to the jerk of the week. Because that's
fine.
So, okay, let's save it for the jerk of the week then, because there's a lot to say about this.
Yes, because I take it you read the interview in the Free Press, and he said a lot of things, and it's like I'm glad that guy's moving on. Well, I guess one other thing about the Lions is the Terry and Arnold stuff, where he put out a statement refuting suggestions that he was at the center of a text message thread connected to a Florida kidnapping, and apparently the kidnapping and everything was in regard to a robbery at his own home. And apparently, those lawyers reiterated Arnold had no involvement in the situation, which I kind of, I don't know about you, Nick, I'm kind of having trouble believing it, considering how he had to know something, because it was his friends supposedly who did this to the people who ripped Arnold off. And it's like, Mike, I know I was a knucklehead when I was 22 or so years old. I made a lot of dumb decisions. The problem is, when I was making dumb decisions, I wasn't affecting a multi-billion-dollar corporation and a 40-man roster, a 52-man roster, and essentially the rest of my life by possibly doing something so stupid that could get you in that kind of legal trouble.
Honestly, I think Arnold has always sort of appeared a little bit stupid to me.
Yeah.
Not to the point like Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams really, he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
Yeah.
But Williams did those dumb things too, and it impacted him. But
yeah,
Arnold is like really playing with the law now, and so I'm with you on it. Of course, his lawyers are going to say he had nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
and they're going to force somebody else to prove it. That goes without saying. But something about it, it's it's Arnold's place that got robbed. Yeah. And it's Arnold's friends that went after somebody else. And
it's not hard to connect the dots.
It's
and if I was one of Arnold's friends and I was looking at prison time and he said, we will maybe give you a better sentence or we'll reduce the charges if you tell us how Arnold was involved. Yeah, I'm going to snitch. Yeah, now I would not be surprised if it gets to that point. If what we're saying is true, which at the least seems very, I wouldn't say it's in the realm of possibility. I'll put it that way.
So I think that was part of the Rod Wood interview. Wasn't he talking about the Terry and Arnold? And then I read some quote about supposedly Wood grilled Arnold about this.
Yeah.
It's that's the one thing I'm backing Wood on. Why the fuck wouldn't you do that? You moron. Are you going to be a part of this team now, or did you do something so stupid? How does the team handle this? And that's what they're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
I don't know if Wood should have been the one to do it, because
exactly
it should have been Brad Holmes,
or maybe Campbell. Lawyers.
Oh yeah,
or team lawyers for that matter. But my first thought was, you want to put the fear of God into him? Yeah, have Dan Campbell talk to him.
Exactly. They're the ones that should be figuring this out. Rod Wood just any moves he makes is kind of dumb, I guess, or just kind of tone deaf. But but no, he had a legitimate reason for if he actually grilled Arnold, he should have grilled Arnold.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just gonna just trust Arnold that he had nothing to do with it. Let's go on our merry way, he's going to be our, starting cornerback. Are you nuts?
Yeah, and it'll say volumes the Lions' thoughts on this if they're how high they draft a cornerback in the draft later this month. So it's because people they need a left tackle and they need an edge. Well, they might need a cornerback too. Put that high on the list because even though the lawyers are saying this and Arnold is saying this, the feds aren't saying it. Well, I wouldn't say the feds. It's probably the Florida police, whoever's jurisdiction. They are saying a lot other than he's involved somehow, even if it's not criminally. I still have a hard time believing he's not in deeper than he's letting on. So it's ugly. It really is.
And if nothing else, it's going to be a distraction for him until this whole thing is over.
Exactly.
He's already got his head up his ass to begin with. So.
Well, let's hope Ennis Rakestraw is ready. That's all I can say at this point. So, God, it's the Lions went from this seemingly model franchise over the past few years. This is an old school off season for them. Controversy after controversy between the Ragnow stuff and the and the Arnold stuff, and then the how come I'm drawing a blank on the left tackle? You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, Decker.
Taylor Decker, and that drama going on there too.
Oh, good grief.
It's like his Russ Thomas is smiling from the grave because this is the kind of shit that happened under his watch. So, yeah, this has been a very concerning. I don't want to know if I'm going to say concerning. It's just, again, optics more than anything. Because I have agreed with a lot of the things the Lions have done with who they have to sign and who they can and can't afford to sign. But some of just the optics on how they're running the team this offseason, it's concerning as to it feels like they just can't fully shake the old Lions way of doing shit, if you know what I'm saying.
All right. Remember, we're talking about like a new Lions, no more the same old Lions kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They've only had success for like 2.5 years out of the 60 since the Fords have owned them. So,
yeah.
And that was already 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
But you know,
and be honest, this was a last place team this last year. No, they were just one game under 500, still a last place team. So
I'm not ready to throw Brad Holmes under the bus.
Not nearly at all. No.
Because look at it. 2 years ago, they were 15-2. They got bounced in the first round of the playoffs, so they had to figure out how to get back into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Last year, they didn't even make the playoffs, and they were kind of like they were really bad at times.
Yeah,
and then they're dealing with changes in offensive coordinator. They're dealing with a turnover in their offensive line.
Yeah.
So Brad Holmes is actually doing a lot to try and figure this shit out.
Yeah.
You may not agree with every one of his picks, and I don't even worry about judging who he picks. I haven't heard of most of these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, whatever, let them play. We'll figure out whether they fit together.
Right.
It's not just we're going to go after stars and throw money at them to solve the problem. That's stupid. So, are they going to be more successful than last year? I hope so, but you can't tell until they start playing. But he's actually, his team didn't fare well, and he's actually doing something. We just spent all this time talking about Yzerman sitting with his thumb up his ass, for the last 4 years with the same fucking result that we've seen.
Yeah.
So, which is it, guys? Which one? Is it one thing for the Red Wings and another thing for the Lions?
Apparently it is, yes.
Right.
But you're right.
He's doing something.
Yeah, exactly. There's a plan. There's obviously a plan that they want to get younger. And it makes sense because that offensive line was starting to look a little old, especially with Glasgow and Decker. And they couldn't roll with what they had. We've talked about it, how Decker was hurt all year and never practiced, and the old saying goes, you'd rather move on from a guy a year early than a year late. And maybe it is a year early for Decker, but if maybe they do try to roll with him, and then he gets hurt, or his chronic injuries crop up again, and then you're really up shit creek because you really don't have a replacement right now. So so there is a plan in place, and I trust Holmes. As you said, I don't agree with everything he's done, but I agree with most of what he's done. And the other thing, Nick, is when I see people saying, all these extensions. Yes, I like having good players kept.
Yes.
Yes. It's like, well, should they have given these big extensions? Of course they should have. That's the price you pay for being good when you pick good players in the draft. You get that discount for the first 4 or 5 years. Then you got to pay up. And now we're at that point now where now they're trying to figure things out with some of these big contracts. But I want a Lions team that does have Goff and Amon-Ra and Hutchinson and Sewell, then doesn't. And I see people, well, should they give Gibbs a contract? Should they give
yes.
Yeah, of course, yes. The only guys I can see being wary about right now is God, what is my memory? The safety.
Branch.
Branch. Thank you, Branch. I wanted to say Blades. I know it wasn't Benny Blades, for Christ's sake. Yeah, I can remember Benny Blades' name, but I can't remember Branch's name. Or I want to say Cliff Branch or something. So, I mean, I can understand that. Or Laporta. That's the one guy I could see maybe you don't want to overpay just because, tight end is is a position where you can probably get by with a little lesser talent. But still, do you want to walk away from an All-Pro? Because that's essentially what you'd be doing with a guy like Laporta. So you pay these guys, and then you figure it out. And that's what the Lions are now in the figure it out phase. And I would rather go into the season with these guys than without these guys. That's my thought on the whole damn thing. You pay them.
Oh, truly. You know, the old Lions teams may have had like one or two like actually legit, Pro Bowl caliber player at a time.
Yeah.
And you remember fans desperately wanting to keep that guy because because the team was, was a big pile of shit other than that one player.
Yeah.
Like during the Matt Millen era, remember Dre Blyde out of somehow miraculously was a good player for them.
Yeah.
And so let's pay this cornerback a lot of money, even though the rest of the team, is a pile of garbage.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Football isn't Moneyball. You can't play Moneyball like in football the way you do in baseball. It's just a completely different salary structure and how the game is played.
Exactly.
You pay your stars, and then you fill in the holes around them, and and go from there. And I think that's hopefully we're right about this, and I think this is still a good team. As long as they stay healthy, they got to stay healthy. And admittedly, they have had some horrible injury luck. Maybe this is the year where it doesn't affect. Who knows? But as you said, Nick, it's still way too early to make any kind of call as to what the roster is going to look like or how good it's going to be. We have to wait.
That's right. I mean, you can't really tell until a few seasons into few games into the season.
Exactly.
So
that's
you've gotten some free agents now. You've made a few trades. Okay, that's two of the three options you have. Your third one is the draft, which hasn't even happened yet.
Right.
So, and even after that, there could be more trades and
guys
signings.
will be released after June 1st and all that. Yes.
So
all right.
Give it time.
Yeah. No one has patience anymore, even if we tend to lose it sometimes. All right, let's rather than talking Tigers, since Greg has moved on, and we do have to wrap things up because there's a title game in about 20 minutes.
That's right.
Let's touch on the Wolverines real quick before we wrap things up. So they have been dominant through this NCAA tournament. They have scored 90 points in each game. They have won each game by double digits. And the only way teams have even been remotely able to stay in a game is to have historic three-point shooting, like in the Howard game where they hit 8 straight three-pointers, for example. And that kept them in the game for a half, and then Michigan dog-walked them in the second. And it was the closest game I think they've had in the tournament was with Alabama, and that was like a 13-point win or something like that. And then we were told, Nick, that the Michigan-Arizona game was going to be a game for the ages. It was the game of the year. That is the de facto national championship game. And that game was over probably before halftime. Michigan was that dominant. And that was without Yaxel Landenborg, who was playing, who twisted his ankle and apparently sprained his knee. Hopefully he's able to play a fair amount of minutes tonight. But even with him on limited minutes, they destroyed Arizona.
Every time I think, can they keep this up? They end up not only winning, they keep on just punching the other team right in the mouth from the very beginning. It's actually really impressive as a U of M fan. So
yes,
because I sit there like, oh man, Arizona's going to be tough competition, and there's good reason to have thought that was going to be the case.
Right.
And I was not expecting any kind of it was a blowout. Right?
A 30-point second half lead.
Yeah, it was.
That's bonkers. Yeah.
I will. Having said all of that.
Yeah.
Do not underestimate UConn. Do not.
Oh, they terrify me. Yes.
They beat Duke. No, they don't only beat Duke.
Yeah.
They came from a 19-point deficit to beat Duke.
Yes. Yeah.
And all you need is one more point than your opponent to win. That's it.
Yeah.
And they got it. So that's a confident team. They're well coached, no matter whether you think Hurley's a jerk or not.
Yeah, you can make. There's an argument he's the best coach in the country right now in college ball.
And he could very well be. And just because he may not have been ranked during the season rankings, who cares? Honestly, I think the two best teams are in it now.
Yeah.
I don't know which way it can go. I don't even want to I've seen speculation like left and right, but like that's kind of irrelevant. I saw speculation for the Arizona game and didn't expect that outcome.
Yeah.
So I still like who I'm rooting for, and
oh yes, I am too. I'm a Michigan guy all the way. I'm with you.
So,
but you have even more skin in the game as a grad. So this is it's still an amazing building job by Dusty May. I mean, this was the last place team in the Big Ten 2 years ago. It's a very Pistons-like build. They speed ran rebuilding with Dusty May. And what gets me is that's the best team money can buy.
No, it's not true.
No. I mean, the guys they picked, Lendenborg was probably the number one transfer out there. But he was, there was talk that at best he was a low first round pick, like, in the low 20s. But they built him up to be a lottery pick. I mean, Mara couldn't get off the bench with UCLA. He was playing, 10 minutes a game under that Mick Cronin. Don't even get me going on him. Then Moritz, he was a bench guy. All he did for Illinois was rebound. They didn't ask him to do anything else. And then Caddio, he got run out of North Carolina on a rail. Yeah. They didn't like him. The fans wanted him gone. And all those guys are massive, massive contributors under Dusty May. They were paid market rate, but it's one thing to do that, but then also find the right guys to fit in that system, because the Wolverines play a very pretty style of basketball. Constant movement with the ball. And they make use of their size. And that's a wonderful thing to watch. They got big guys. Let's pound the damn glass, and that's exactly what they do. It's fun, though. I love watching Michigan play.
They were talking to Dusty May about this, and it's like he was talking about getting the right pieces to fit in there, not just collecting, star talent, basically.
Yes.
And I think
like Kentucky used to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean that theme is like old as can be in all sports. Just because the Yankees spend like $100 million over the salary cap doesn't mean they're going to win anything.
Right.
That example happens over and over and over again. It's like you got to know what you're doing. You got to know that these guys can play together.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just you're paying the best, the highest named players, the biggest named players.
Yeah.
So he did it the right way, and
no rules are being broken. This is today's way of. That's what gets me that's not how Tom Izzo will do it. And where's Tom Izzo? He's no longer Mr. March. That's essentially Hurley now. And, Izzo has, made one Final Four in 10, 12 years, something like that now? So.
Forever.
Yeah. The game has changed. It's the Dusty Mays and the Hurleys of the world are the next generation of great coaches, because, they know how to. You just don't, recruit a bunch of guys, hope they stay 3 or 4 years, and then you're going for a national title in year 3 or 4. That doesn't fly that's not going to work in today's world.
No.
It might, and even with the mid majors, we're not going to see mid majors do what they used to, I think, because we're seeing of Lendenborg. Could he have led UAB deep into the tournament? Quite possibly. But why, when he could go to a big school like Michigan and get to the damn national title game?
Right.
I think it's a new era of college sports. It really is. And the team building reflects that.
And even before NIL was like really what it is now, there was a lot of one and dones, especially in basketball.
Yeah.
Calipari at Kentucky, built his championship teams.
That's all it was. Yeah, one and dones.
That game.
Right. Yeah.
He was bringing them in. He knows they were gone after a year and off to the NBA.
Yeah. Right.
So it's a different game. It's none of this, 1980s or 70s Big Ten, 3 or 4 years. The head coach has this little fiefdom, and so that's gone.
Yep, things have changed, and it's up to the fans to decide if it is what it is, but it's not going to change. It's not going back to what it was. Because you constantly see that of people, oh, I miss how college sports were. Oh, you miss where coaches were making millions of dollars and players were getting nothing and and were stuck at where they're at the mercy of their coach. If you want to see changes, you want to see the players form a union and let there be collective bargaining, and then they can figure out regulations as to how many times they can transfer, how long they can stay in school, and things like that. But until the schools say, yes, you're employees, this is what we have, and that's how it's going to be.
That's right. And, forgot what I was going to say about that, but I got getting fired up for the other stuff.
Yeah, so we got to wrap it up shortly. So,
but
the college sports as we knew it growing up, that's gone, and the same goes with the sort of coaches that we saw. I don't think those kind of coaches, the Izzos and the Sabans and those ilk, are going to fly anymore. It's a completely different era, and get used to it. If do things need to be fixed? Yes, but they got more things. The NCAA has to figure this out, or the schools have to decide what they want to do. Do they want to have a super conference? Do they want to get rid of the NCAA altogether? They need to figure all that out before they figure out, transfer portal. So be it. Yeah. All right, let's get out of here because I know you got a ball game in 10 minutes. So who's your jerk of the week? Now you can go in on Rod Wood. Your jerk of the week. Okay.
Here's what I wanted to say about Rod Wood. He is definitely my jerk of the week, and I think it's not the first time I've had him as jerk of the week. Mm-hmm. And it does have to do with this Ragnow thing.
Yeah.
The fact that he said something is sleazy. I don't want to say sleazy, but he said it's our money, not his money, kind of thing. Look. Yeah. Before he became president of the Lions, he was in charge of the Ford Family Investment Fund, or whatever the fuck you call that thing. Basically, he's a finance, investment banker guy that was looking after the Ford's money.
Yeah,
that's what he did. And for some reason, in typical Ford family fashion, he must be great at running the entire fucking Detroit Lions NFL team.
Yeah.
So he gets put in charge of that. I'm sure it did his ego a lot of good to have that in there. And so as part of that, of course, is all this, return our signing bonuses, damn it. And let me address the Barry Sanders thing. That was done under what I think it was still Chuck Schmidt at the time.
Yes, it was.
Who was a very well-known cheapskate bean counter because he was actually a fucking CFO. And he was also, I've said it before, the skinny Russ Thomas is what he was called. Mm-hmm. So the Lions have had a miserly sort of the Lions have been a miserly organization since Russ Thomas.
Right.
I mean, you remember all the holdouts in the 80s. That was guaranteed to happen. That son of a bitch was trying to squeeze everybody. And so Barry Sanders returning their money, yes, it's probably to the letter of the contract. And then Calvin Johnson, I think Rod Wood was also the one as president who demanded the money back as well.
Yeah.
For Calvin Johnson. And then the question is, why doesn't Calvin Johnson, he's a lifelong Lion, why did he just say fuck you? And it took time for him to come back. And why won't he kind of be an ambassador of goodwill for the Lions? Because of shit like this. He didn't I think he deliberately did not call out that organization by name during his Hall of Fame ceremony, induction ceremony. So precedent, Rod Wood is part of that precedent. And not to mention, who cares about precedent? Why can't you do something differently? You have a reputation as a miserly organization. Why don't you try and change that a little bit? And then let me go to the question about, it says in the contract we have to follow it. No, you fucking don't. And it's an agreement between the player and the organization. And that's just to kind of keep all of the expectations up front. Yeah. But there's nothing that's in those agreements that say one party can say, well, you just keep the money.
Yeah.
Shit I do contracts, not on this scale, but I've done contracts with other people, other organizations. They've done them with me or the company I work for. You go beyond what's written in that agreement. So there is some allowance for, interpretation, the circumstances.
Yeah.
Why not build goodwill with your former players? They will advocate for you in the future. That's building a good culture, instead of saying, well, you can't play, you quit, fuck you, give us our money back. Oh, but by the way, you're a Lion. Can you, support us somehow? You can't have it both ways. There's no reason the Lions could not have given said to Ragnow, keep the money. You injured yourself. Your body's broken up because of us. Keep the money.
Right.
So
contracts were made to be broken, or at least amended.
And amended. If both parties agree to it, why?
Yeah.
It's just
exactly.
The contract itself is an agreement between those two people. So, these are the kind of times where
I wish Sheila would have stepped in and done something rather than kept hands off.
That's a typical Ford family thing. And it's gone from William Clay Ford to his wife to whatever, I can't remember her name now. But
Martha? Martha Firestone, the wife. Yeah, Martha, exactly. And now Sheila.
Yeah. And the Lions, remember, they're like one of the least valuable NFL organizations, considering how shitty.
Despite being one of the oldest ones. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like they don't have that's a little bit of arrogance from their part. So, so my jerk of the week is Rod Wood.
No arguments from me. Plus, I read a little bit in the that interview where he was saying, well, maybe we shouldn't have forced vaccinations on people during COVID. Maybe we should have asked more questions. I'm like, seriously? Yeah, he was really coming off as anti-vax. It's like, you got to be kidding me. So, I'm with you there. Good riddance to that guy, to be honest with you, at this point. Because he had built up some goodwill because he wasn't doing anything. And now he's opening his mouth and pissing people off left and right. So, you nailed it there. All right, my jerk of the week, it was pretty easy. I'm going to Gino Auriemma of UConn's women's head coach, who absolutely made a complete ass of himself this past weekend. And what the final four was, I think, Saturday night, where they played, or his UConn played Dawn Staley's South Carolina, and I guess he went off like in a third quarter interview, throwing F-bombs about how Staley was doing things, and then after they got beat and blown out, he went off in the interview room, during the presser, claiming that Staley didn't shake his hand, which there was actual video footage of them shaking hands. That he claimed her team was playing so dirty that they fouled one of his players and ripped her jersey before the even interview came. We've already even talked to Auriemma. They talked to that player and said, "Oh, I ripped that jersey myself because I was pissed." South Carolina didn't rip it, and it was he kept digging a deeper and deeper hole of lies and fabrications, or at least in his mind, maybe they were true, but none of it was true. And then, after being absolutely raked through the coals in the media, he issued one of those non-apology apologies, never mentioning Staley at all. And Staley has her own issues as well. She's most head coaches at that level can be pieces of work at times. But Auriemma, he's won 12 national titles, and it really feels like he cannot. He can't handle losing. He is essentially a sore loser. He has gotten so used to winning. He was so used to dominating a women's game. Now that he doesn't dominate the women's game anymore, he doesn't know how to handle it or how to react. So he lashed out in that presser and came off looking. Very few coaches have come off looking as bad as he did after a game. So he's my jerk of the week. Do you know for making an absolute ass of himself in a post-game presser by telling fabrications. He was just fabricating shit out of midair of the accusations he was making.
That's a good one. I mean, he was throwing some serious tantrums. I mean, the pettiest shit I've ever seen. It makes Izzo seem dignified. So.
Oh, God, All right. With that, I think that's a good time to wrap things up because we're almost a tip-off. So, Nick, why don't you tell everybody they can find you online?
All right. It's really simple. If you want to talk sports with me, I'm at Nick Milanovich on Twitter. My Instagram is cat up a tree, but that's like totally different. But I am there online and will interact with people. So
Exactly. All right, Greg has already thrown out all of his plugs, so I was once again say thanks to Matt Hutter. It was wonderful to talk to. I hadn't talked to him in years. Had a great time.
absolutely.
Yep. As always, if we would appreciate if you'd like, shared, and subscribe to the Knee Jerks podcast. We are available pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, Deezer, Radio Public, Ghana, pretty much anywhere podcasts are found. Just do a search for the Knee Jerks podcast, the Knee Jerks with Eno, Nick, and Big Al. Something like that will allow you to get to the podcast and then subscribe. And please let us know what you think. We also live stream video of every show to both YouTube and Twitch. Again, just do a search for the Knee Jerks. You'll find us right there. Plus, the links to all this stuff are in all our show notes. And for that matter, those show notes can be found at thekneejerks.net, which will be going live probably in about an hour, at least from when we finish recording. So I think with that, Nick, we got to get you out here because it's like game time. So
Right on.
until this time, 2 weeks from now, this is Al Beaton saying good night. Good luck and aloha, along with Nick Milanovich.
Good night, Al.
Yeah, good night, Nick, and good night, Greg, wherever you are. So
That's right.
we'll see everybody. Yeah, we'll see everybody soon.